There's been just a few times that I can think of throughout the history of college football in that I've been a fan or covering the sport that I can think of a coach moving from one program to the next and being honest about the talent evaluation of where they arrived. Meaning, when you leave Appalachian State, like a number of coaches have in recent years, and gone to an SEC program, you don't need to discuss the elevation in talent. It's obvious to everyone, everyone knows it. But when you go from Clemson to Oklahoma, it would be interesting to know what's really their evaluation of what they've seen, whether that's, wow, I'm a little surprised here that they're kind of weak here or kind of weak there, and we were much better, or wow, they're better here or there, or these kids really know how to work or they don't know how to work. We're really going to have to push them. We worked a lot harder there. Whatever, there's got to be, when you leave Clemson and go to Oklahoma, there's got to be things processing in their minds as coaches, for as detailed as they are and for as many football players as they've seen and evaluated and coached in their lifetimes, to know that, okay, we're a top 3 to 5 program in the country. We just left a top 3 to 5 program in the country. Again, it's not your move from a G5 to a Power 5 and understanding, okay, I got a lot better athletes here. But maybe being a little surprised at both positively and negatively at the comparison.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, Mark. And obviously I don't know that we'll ever hear that, obviously, to that extent. I think the one thing that both Venables and I saw an interview with the new director of football operations, Thad Turnipseed, who was with Saban at Alabama, then went to Clemson, and obviously it's followed to Venables here to Oklahoma. Talked about, quite frank, and said, we're not Alabama, we're not there yet. That's the goal. That's where we want to be, and talked about being where they felt the program was really good right now. But it's hard to get from really good to great, and that's what Alabama's done. And he said, they even talked about Clemson's done that a little bit, maybe not as consistently as Alabama has, of course, but they've done that a little bit. And it's hard to get from it's harder to get from really good to great than it is to get from average to really good. So I think that's the challenge that they have. And I think, to your question, in terms of talent on the field, I think that's the $1 million question that's going to be answered. Maybe not necessarily this year, Mark, but in the coming years. What is the talent level at on the defensive side of the ball for Oklahoma? They've got a lot of 4-star. They're littered with 4-star talent throughout this defensive roster. So I think that the thought is it the coaching staff? Is that what's kind of been holding the talent back over the last couple of years? Because what you've seen, and this is consistently, not just with Alex Grinch, but this consistently went back to Mike Stoops and some of the regime there, in the fact that Oklahoma's had a lot of kids that have played really well early on, but it seems like a lot of them have digressed a little bit as their career has kind of developed throughout the program. And so you've started to even see that a little bit with Alex Grinch, this past year, and how Oklahoma had started becoming pretty good. Comparable to where they were under Mike Stoops, pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. And then last year wasn't quite, the jump, and took a little bit of a step back. So does the coaching staff that Venables has brought in, because it's up there with Alabama, it's up there with Clemson in terms of some of the best defensive staff that you'll see in the country when you look at the national championships that a lot of these coaches have won, whether it be at Clemson or Alabama or wherever they've been. How does that look early on this season? If Oklahoma's a lot better on the defensive side of the ball, throughout the season, then you can say, yeah, maybe the talent was always there. Maybe the coaching, additions or upgrades have really, the talent's there. So that's what we know. versus, if they struggle, if they're kind of what they were this past year, then you kind of look at it and see, okay, maybe the talent is not necessarily as good as what we anticipated, or maybe the talent's good but doesn't necessarily fit the scheme as well as it did previous schemes. So I think that's going to be so intriguing to watch, not only through the spring but also obviously through the remainder of the season.